Hey, everybody, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. Looking forward to talking to Donna Griffit, corporate storyteller. Donna, welcome to the show. Looking forward to talking with you. You are the CEO of Donna Griffit Corporate Storytelling. You work with startups tired of wasting hours upon hours of precious time creating investor materials that don't get you the meetings or the funding that you need. You know, to me, Donna, I've been looking forward to talking with you because I find I'm a business coach. And I work with solopreneurs to Fortune companies and everything in between. And one of the things I find is people, whether I'm coaching salespeople, managers, VPs, C-level execs, leaders, most people don't have tight messaging when it comes to talking about themselves, when it comes to talking about their companies, when it comes to talking about their value proposition, when it comes to the messaging in the questions, the messaging in their value prop, all of it. And so to me, it's so simple, it's complicated. So I'm looking right. It's like, I think it was Mark
simple,
Twain.
But it's not easy. That's what I
Right. It's simple and it's not easy. You know, Mark Twain, I think it was Mark Twain who said, if I had more time, I'd write a shorter book. And Winston Churchill, I think, is the one who said, if I had more time, I'd write a shorter speech. Yeah. It takes a lot of time to get to simple. So what is the art of messaging? Right. Let's start there. You are a storyteller, but let's start with how do we get to simple?
Okay. So first of all, and you said it in what you said, people don't know how to sell themselves, whether it's themselves, their company, their solutions, their products, and it's the most high value messaging. And it's super important to be able to do so.
And I just want to say one thing before, because that gives the message that companies know if you make a big impact, if your messaging is clear and they can understand the impact that you will make on them, their company, et cetera, then your value goes up.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, and I've heard you speak to other guests about this. It's finding it's about you, but it's not about you.
Correct. Yeah.
I know that's kind of a contradiction in terms, but it's really honing in on what your audience needs, whether it's people at work that you're leading or a team that's behind you or another team that you're trying to sell ideas to, or whether it's your own startup and you're trying to get the word out there. Nobody really cares about what you're doing, unless it's something that it's needed for them. So we need to start off talking about the need story. So I always say, so it could be your origin story. How did you even get to this idea, to this thought? And was it something you experienced in life, a pain you saw, a family member, something from the news that we can all sit there going, because storytelling is about captivating your audience and getting that nod. The nod. So if they're nodding, it means that they're listening and they're interested in what else you have to say. And you're kind of reeling them in, you're resonating with them. You're giving them something that's going like, oh yeah, that reminds me of the time. And that's what good storytelling does. It sparks memories, thoughts, and gets agreement. So the very first step, of course, you want to know what you are good at and what you are selling, but you have to start off with what their need is.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. What someone's need is, right? I think there's kind of the universal need and then the highlighted need based on the moments, based on real time, right? Based on where they are today.
Yeah. You want to have I think when it's your own story talking about how you have identified the need, it's just very persuasive because it's your own and because nobody else can take that away and they can't argue with you about it because everybody's like waiting in the stance to kind of argue and give it to you. But you are bringing this story of a journey that you made. Now, I've worked with founders 11, 12 years ago that I still remember their origin story because stories stick with us.
Let's talk about that because you're saying origin. What I use when I'm talking to clients is their backstory. Same thing. I actually like the word origin better. And so let's talk about that because I think that's where people start to feel connected, right? So it's about storytelling with the emotional connection of they're connecting. Like you said, you remember their origin, but I think sometimes people feel vulnerable to go there. And so talk about kind of how to kind of surrender. And I think I find that most people think that nobody cares about the origin story.
Oh,
And so kind of dive into that a little bit, the importance.
So, I mean, just anecdotally, watching a new show, I always have like a doing dishes show. So the latest one I'm watching is Ordinary Joe. And in one of the scenes, his wife is running for Senate and she gets up to give her first speech and everybody's like not engaged. And then she shares a very personal bit about her life, very personal. And she had just gone through a miscarriage and you see the room just kind of like light up. Likes, shares, everything, people writing her, you inspired me, because you never know who is listening to you that is inspired, that's going, oh my gosh, yeah, that's like, you're telling my life. Oh yeah, I really get that. And that's what we want. And that personal kind of vulnerable thing is exactly what makes you authentic. I mean, only share as much as you're comfortable sharing. I mean, let's not get too personal, but enough that makes you feel like you're taking your mask off. You're letting them see what's underneath. They're seeing the real person. And that's what people love. They love authenticity. They love stories. They love like connecting to you. And that's when you're going to buy their money, their vote, their partnership. That's what works.
Yeah. So now let's talk about, talk to, you offer a lot of different services. And we'll get into those in a minute, but what's the formula then? So that's the beginning, the start of the formula. What's the formula?
Well, actually, there's like a prequel to this. So think of my formula as a 4-act play. Storytelling goes back thousands of years. I haven't invented it. I've just repurposed it. So it's basically the way you'd see Greek tragedies, Shakespeare, Moliere, Chekhov, any of the greats, even the Bible, the way it's written, is in these, like, so I call it chunks or 4 acts. So the prequel, like the overture, when you're coming into the theater and the orchestra is playing, is your vision statement. You want to shoot for something much, much bigger than where you're at now. And you want to be able to say it. So Simon Sinek calls it the why. What is your why? What will 5 years from now have shifted, have changed? And what change will you have driven? Then you go into your problem / opportunity / needs / whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be a negative. It could be something that, like, you see something that, wow, how much better could the world be if we did X? And then act 2 is you, the hero. So we started with the villain. And in any good action film, you'll see this at the beginning. We meet the villain or a villainous act at the very beginning. Then we go on to the hero, you, your product, your simple solution statement. Again, we said it's simple, but it's not easy. We do X for Y by Z. Okay. What kind of company are you? Who are you catering to? And what technology or means are you using to do it? And then as fast as possible, you want to get to an impressive demo. It doesn't have to be a $20,000 demo video. It can just be screenshots, but take us on the journey of the user who will be or who is using your product, solution, services. So if you already have clients, tell us their story. What were they struggling with before in the villain part? And now how has their life become better, stronger, more profitable? So that's Act 2.
Yeah.
Act 3, the business. We got to talk numbers. We're talking to investors and not philanthropists. Even though this formula will work for philanthropy as well, you still need to show that you have a viable model. So, how are you going to make money? Business model, go-to-market strategies, the market analysis, competitive landscape, all that good stuff. And then finally, okay, the hero has fought the battles, and now what's next? What's the aftermath? So what's your roadmap? And then going back to that vision you started with, we're going to end in a nice, circle. How are you now moving towards that bigger vision? Get them excited about what's to come. And then, of course, what's your ask? Do you want a partner? Do you want funding? Do you want sales? But always make sure they're taking that one next step towards the action that you want. Most likely, they're not going to pull out their checkbook and write $1 million check on the spot. I mean, I'm sure it's happened, and wouldn't that be nice? But if you get a second meeting or a follow-up or they ask to see a deeper dive into your technology, that's great because they're moving forward.
Yeah, and that's it. I love it. Let's talk about the ask. I talk about the ask a lot in my business because I think whether it's a salesperson that I train who can't ask or doesn't ask effectively for the business, a manager who isn't asking their people to do things effectively, a leader who isn't asking their people to do things effectively, I think people have a really hard time with the ask. Studies have been show that Home Depot has 4 checkout lines: the normal checkout, the self checkout, the construction workout checkout, and the landscaping checkout. And the self checkout sells the most warranties by 37% because the computer doesn't have any emotion to ask. Right?
Love it. So let's be computers.
Yeah.
And you know what? I've struggled with this too. And you know, looking every year or so to raise rates and to say, like, oh my gosh, is that okay? Will people pay for it? Will people buy it? Look, what are you there for? You're not there to just show them what you've done. I remember many years ago being at a speech of a brilliant business coach that had like these incredible classes that he had developed for creativity for kids. And we were, talking about partnering at the time. And I went to see him speak, and the room was riveted. I would say probably 75% would have signed up on the spot, but there was no ask, enroll tonight for a 10% discount, or, hey, we have people at the door ready to, I was just perplexed.
Yeah.
How do you have this iron that is so hot and you just kind of let it fizzle? Yeah. Don't let that happen. You've got them. You've told the story. You've got their buy-in. You've got them excited. They believe the numbers. Now, okay, what's next? We need $1 million, and then you have to be clear. What are your allocations? You don't have to go down to the paper clips, but you do want to kind of tell them what the money. But more important, what is achievable with this? Yeah. What are the KPIs? What are the key performance indicators that you will have achieved when you get to the end of your runway? So if this is going to last you for 18 months, what can we expect to see at the end of these 18 months?
Right. Be very, it's so interesting, Donna. I find that, I never have had a problem asking, but I've always worked on the evolution of the ask, right? Where, you feel comfortable asking 3 times, you get comfortable asking 4 times, 4 times, 6 times. I mean, I teach a lot of people on the ask, right? To ask actually for the business. But I think there's an insecurity there. And I think one of the mindsets I like to get my people that I work with and coach is it's all about intent. If you really know that you can help that person, if you're asking in your case for $1 million, like you were saying, you're asking for $1 million. If you know that they're going to make, this is just an example, $2 million, right? Then the value is there. You're grounded. It's okay to give some level of accountability.
And I mean, it's like for myself, I know that in 2 hours, I can create a winning pitch deck in 2 hours in real time. And I know that the pain for my customers is they've usually spent over 400 hours trying to iterate 37 versions, and they're not good.
Right.
So they're too entrenched in it. So if I can in 2 hours give them the value, and they're going to end up raising millions of dollars and building their business. I mean, I have a client that IPO'd last year, and I worked with them 11 years ago on their initial round A raise. Yeah. And they realized nobody was getting what their message is. And today they're an empire and they're buying other companies and they've grown. But if nobody knows what it is that you're doing and nobody can understand it.
Right. And I find people get stuck. This is why I was looking forward to talking with you. I love storytelling. I love storytellers. I love people who work with people and focus on storytelling because, it's that story that there's a couple of them, but, the Picasso story, and a woman's at a coffee shop and she runs into Picasso and she says, "Oh, my daughter loves you. Can you, draw something on the back of this napkin?" So he does. And then she goes to grab the napkin. He says, "What are you doing?" And she says, "Well, I'm going to give it to my daughter." He said, No. You have to pay for it. Well, he says, She says, "Well, how much is it?" He says, "It's $60,000. And he says, $60,000. She says, $60,000. It took you 2 minutes. He said, 2 minutes. It took me a lifetime. Right. And so it's right. So messaging and giving someone clarity. And I find today where your profession is so important. And frankly, mine too, in the way that I help people, is people's attention span is less than it's ever been. It is less than a goldfish. I may be getting this off by a couple seconds, but the average person spends less than 3 seconds on a homepage, less than 6 seconds reading a blog. People don't read anymore. They skip.
Unless you hook them, unless you get them engaged and they have a reason to continue.
Correct. And so what you do in 2 hours, I find sometimes people struggle with in for decades. Yeah. So
absolutely. And think about it. I mean, even just going through my Google feed of articles at night, what are the ones that I stop and read?
Right.
Those that are meaningful to me, those that hold my interest. Otherwise, I'm going to mark it as, not interested in this content.
Right.
Because I want something that's meaningful.
Correct.
And so does everyone. Just think of it that way. You're there in service of their needs.
Absolutely. Amen. So you offer a ton of services to all kind of different elements of things. I'll read a few. The one pager, the quick pitch, the show, the intro video, the LinkedIn, the story, the VC fund. I mean, tell a bit about what you do, how you do it, and who you do it for.
Sure. So my main audience are tech startups, though I do work with lifestyle businesses and many other, brands and people and individuals that give speeches. So I do everything from speech writing, but my main business is investor pitches. So people get prep work from me that will help them, kind of gather the data. I kind of think of it as a Whole Foods shopping list. You go and buy premium ingredients, bring them to me. I will cook you a beautiful meal on the spot. It won't look very pretty because I'm not a graphic designer, but it's all going to be there. Yeah. And it's done in real time. I have this filter in my brain that's backed by AI and machine learning and deep learning and NLP. I don't know quite what goes on up there, and I don't quite know how. Sometimes I'll emerge from a session and I'll say to my husband, I have no idea how I just told that story because it's so complex, but hey, I did it.
Well, I think you bring up a really important point. I think, when you are in alignment and in your gifts, I find the same as my coaching, by the way. When I kind of get into a space where I love what I do, I think I'm great at what I do, I guarantee everything that I do, and I allow the universe to kind of allow things to kind of flow through me.
Yes, it's the flow. It's the
right. It's the flow. And so when I get into a flow and I'm so hyper focused on the client, sometimes I think, wow, I don't know where that came from, but it was exactly what the client needed to the word. Yeah. So I understand what you're saying. And that to me are the people that you want to do business with.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know if anybody's recently seen Soul, which is an adorable movie we watched with our girls.
Oh yeah, it's a cute movie.
But there's the point where he's playing the piano and he's so into it that he kind of goes up to that liminal place between heaven and earth. And it's like this moment that you are so immersed in what you do. And I, in another one of your podcasts, I heard you talking about, finding that unique value of yours. And you do, everybody has gifts. Everybody has talents. Everybody has skills. You just might not have found them, or you might not think of them as something great. You need to acknowledge what is your unique fingerprint that you bring to the world.
Right. It seems, I think, so easy. You think everybody has it and they don't. Yeah. It's great. So, Donna, your website is, give everybody your website.
Donna Griffit with a T, no H.
.com. I'm going to spell it too. DONNAGRIFFIT. F
is in Frank, IT.com. And I've got a plethora of free resources of again, going back to the cooking analogy, my chef recipes that I'm giving away. Some people will write me and say, oh my gosh, I used this. Thank you. It was so helpful. And some people want to come to my restaurant and have me prepare it for them. And either way is fine. I'm just happy to be able to give structure and content. So if you're working on a sales pitch or on under research, if you're working on a sales deck or a competition deck or a 5-minute, there's questions that investors ask. So I've really compiled a lot of things to be very helpful. I hope it is helpful for you. Let me know if it is. And anybody mentioning the Think Business podcast that is interested in my services will get a special discount. So please do mention John.
Well, you're very kind. All right. You ready for a quick speed round?
Yes.
All right. Favorite book and why?
I think the book that's influenced me most is How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. I think it was way ahead of its time.
Yeah,
and
it really was.
Stuck with me. And I teach my 8-year-old and my 5-year-old principles of it, and they're already using it.
Me too. I actually, when my kids want or need extra money, I give them a book to read. And I say, if you read the book, talk to me about the book, write a half-page paper, and then I'll give you you know,
That's awesome. We did something similar. We have a peach tree in our yard, and in the summer, and my 8-year-old asked how she could make money, and I said, well, why don't we start a peach business? Now she was the CO. She put us all to work to do it, but she ended up, and I said, you have to share it with your sister, though. This is
great.
A shared business.
That's good.
So, and another principle that I love is turning a complaint into a request. If they complain about something, I say, okay, great. So now what can we do about that?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Best piece of wisdom you ever received?
Oh boy. So many, but I think growing up with my mom, who basically just stepped back and let me find myself and find my talents, and never tried to encroach and tell me what I should be, who I should be. That's been extremely powerful. And that's the kind of space I need to remind myself to give my girls as well. Just find your passion, and everything else will fall into place.
I love it. Finish this sentence. One thing everybody who has been struggling for way too long to give complete clarity to their message needs to
go according to my structure and find the need for your audience and how you can provide that need in a very simple structure.
Yeah, I agree. I love talking to you. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
It's you know, Think Community, it takes a team to get to simple. It really is hard to do it on yourself, especially when you're in it every day. You can't see the forest through the trees. You know, I'm a big believer in investing in yourself, investing in teams, and investing in people that can make you better. And so I love it. I love it. Thank you. DonnaGriffit.com. Check her out. Corporate Storyteller. You know, we're all storytellers, and sometimes we just don't know it. And so we need somebody to show us the formula. And you have a formula. So I appreciate it.
We are all storytellers, but we can take control of the story that we tell. That's the
well said. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Perfect. Great thing. Drop mic, that one. All right. Thanks, everybody. Donna, thanks so much.
Thanks, John.